Everyone, welcome to Global Jesus Mission Church. Today is the date September 2022. Tomorrow is President's Days. So today's title is What Kind of Leaders Will You Become? So because of I choose this today's Bible, we choose Exodus chapter 3 and verse 1 and 4. We can look at those Exodus chapter 3. Moses called by God, and those all the background calling the leaders. So everyone's dreams become good leaders, and then also but we cannot find out good leaders model. That's why I choose today is the model of leaderships through the Moses. What kind of leaderships models we can find out? So more people's more struggle age, we are looking for more leaderships needed. Today's America needed more leaders, presence leaderships. Democrats needed looking for better political candidate. So I want today through the Moses story, what give a message to us real leaders, like we have a president, we have Congress, we have many other political leaders. One of the in Bible, the political leaders, God chose that are Moses. So through the Moses, God called Moses, we find out God looking for leaders and call, like examples when Moses pray mountain Horebs, God call, God appears, burning bushes, and call Moses, Moses, where are you? Moses answered that. As well as Abraham's story in Genesis, God called Abraham as a generation to generations father and blessing Abraham's and call leaders. So we can, there is 3 ways to become leaders. Maybe, our own call, I am leaders. Second, other people make leaders. Third is God called leaders. So today I want to just focus on God calls leaders through Bible stories, Moses' background, how we can be better leaders. So also we can think about, I am what kind of leaders, or what is my core values, become public values. So we can, let's look at the various type of leaderships. There is a personal leaderships, impersonal leadership, democratic leaderships, compassionate leaderships. Many leaderships is there. So in a Moses case, we can look at the Moses life. There is Moses childrenhood. Like Moses was, struggle at that times, but he was adopted as a princess son, and he was grew up very educated. Background is like a princess. He grew up that way. And Moses' life, second chapter, once he murdered for his Israel people, he, living desert, many, many years carrying those mediums, those sheep, cows, many years after those, because God, make those Moses family before he called. So those family foundation is so important because childrenhood, he's educated, and after that he's become younger age. I think those family surroundings politics become politics leader is so good background, is better approach, better leaders. I think those wife, and then many years was devoted on, their father-in-laws, all the wealthy. He was God giving, building those family relationships. Those chapters we can see. Another chapter is Moses, that God called him as leader, as a God give him to calling mission, that slave from the Egypt, escape, Exodus, those Egypts, and make a freedom of those slaves. That is the third chapters Moses, and then after those people's, leaders, they are living in desert, be like a ruler of the peoples. The Moses was strongly, listens God's servant, between peacemaker to God and the peoples, because Moses was one, because the people is far away from, the Moses was calling, God's name, and pray for those people who have tried gods, even they made idols, complain God, why we are, escape from Egypt, better to live as slaves. So that Moses was really older communicators between God and the peoples. So those leaderships, Moses built these leaderships that are loyal appearance, loyal, servant. And then also, prayer, that pray for peoples, he read we need a prayers, those like Moses, always pray to God, the problems they have it, always asking God. As well as, we see that Moses' leadership is authority by giving God, not self-expressions, always strong leadership coming from God because of Moses' obedience. Those, make possible to God can communication with Moses. Moses can, communication their peoples. So those are also we can looking for, God does not looking for those talent peoples. God looking for those obedience people like Moses. So that's when, through those today's Bibles, we know those processing of calling missions as leaders, like one of the sample of Moses calling is like political leaders for Israel peoples. So those leaders, the faith transformed the group of those peoples who are followed. So the most important, the leaderships, Moses, through the Moses story. So he was prepared himself to be leaders, as well as God, giving authority to him to management skill, those organizations, management skill to give Moses, because Moses was everything Moses was doing under God's lead pray. Moses' number one priority missions, the duties, he's delicate for the organization management, as well as, not legal actions, what he needed to do. This is very important, but we ignore small things, we can ignore everything. So small things, obedience, small things, loyal to God, small things make everyday's small duty, make a bigger leadership. Through the Moses life, always pray to God. Those responsibilities, what he has every day, he go for it. So those leaderships build it, not just actions, not just make one day, because through the 40 years desert, God training Moses those leadership, that organization management skills, you know, delegations, authorities, even, you know, authorities by God's powers, not self-impressions. He became strong leaderships. So, you know, the success is, some success is be inherited. You know, also we have to make next generations leaders during those living times. Like Moses is one good things he did. He does not only looking for his generations leaderships, he always looking for the next generation. So that's why he prepared those another leaders, next generation leader, Joshua's, Caleb's. So those Moses leadership is completely satisfied through next generations because Moses was really inherited. You know, those successor must be inherited. But many leaders today, they, even church, even any place, any organizations, most leaders, they are not think about next generation leaderships during they are staying those positions. But Moses is leadership is really be prepared, you know, and be critical, and also be really visible what he needed to do. Integrated place is very important. And you know, responsibilities must driving every day. But through the strong leaderships, the moral values, moral better result. You know, that's why we have to build the strong leaderships. Those strong leadership where come from? Through the Moses life, we can affirm that appearance, you know, everything from God. Everything is calling by God, innovation by God, because God called him first place Moses, training him, and then, you know, we see the story of Moses. Moses, when God called him, send his first mission to escape those slaves from the Egypt. You know, Moses was very afraid because he knew that what is his mission, that he have to escape those freedom of slavery, but how he can be, because he cannot even good talker, he think. So he was worried about to go there, but however, Moses' strong power that trust God, you know, he had a strong believing those God will do everything. So today's leaders, many leaders, we have uncertain things happen like COVID-19, in socialism, climate change. So today's is like many issues like Moses habit, but those who are responders, those who are leaders, you know, very, you know, who had a leaderships, we can affirm those good leadership or bad leadership through those struggles. Moses was successfully complete his mission from God, escape those slave. Once, you know, led libers. You know, God was, he does not know what happens because the following all the Egypt's army follow Moses. Moses was afraid, but Moses was had a king that when he's called God's name, what God was instruction him to those king to put in the lead liver. The lead livers was separate and make load. So same things. So today's like a leadership is we can really have to open our spiritual eyes. because Moses does not have a spiritual eye or a spiritual acknowledge, clear no direction of God through his prayer, how he can follow God's direction that, the cane can touch the liver, can able to make a load, because that is from the Moses believing. So Moses loyal servantships appearance. That's why the leadership was, divided to and save all the peoples. The moment of those leaderships, the Moses comprise proposal was, even rejected. We learned Moses, who does not compromise in the face of power, material things. We should seek defense from the habit that spirituals, voice, what every day we are listen from God. Those compromise proposals, those compromise proposals from God, or those compromise proposals from peoples or power, government power, but the most we have to be really, compromise proposals really when we feel as our loyalty from God here, spiritual voice. That what Moses had a spiritual eyes, spiritual, hand, spiritual, those spiritual power, not looking for people's voice or not looking for people's attentions, because Moses was afraid that time if the leadership is not divided, it's become his lost all his leaderships, but he was confirms that God can be separate those leaders and save their peoples. The leaders, God does not asking every people put the Moses cane in the river sea, let the sea, only Moses. That's why the leaderships, God always choose leaders, peoples, among peoples, for his peoples, peoples. But we have to remember that many politics leaders, even president positions, any senator positions, people's organization management skill by God, but think about that. The person who you management is not your people's. You should think about that. You do managing God's peoples. This America is God's country. So many peoples, they are in politics right now, but we forgot this. All the people we are living in God's peoples. We have to really think about, like Moses already think about that. This Israel peoples, not my peoples, not my servant, but from God's daughter and God's sons. So those thinking is make Moses keep his positions longer. So many political leaders today, they lose their position because of they don't have those theory, which is God's peoples, God's country, God's community, God's generations. So we have to have those theories that Moses has. So the more struggles life, the Moses had it, the more God's powers appear from the Moses. Today's, we see everywhere in TV, everywhere newspapers, we have struggled COVID, we have struggled many other issues, economic issues. In Moses was after Moses, another chapter of life, he management those peoples. He worried about economic growth because he does not have enough food in desert. We remember that Moses get the manna from the heaven of God. Once Moses prayed, asking God, how I can feed your people, God's people, God give it to manna to all the people eat every day, asking only put the only one day's food, not tomorrow's food. That is the leaderships that today's we have a struggle economic problem. Same thing in Moses' times, today's time, there is socialism, black and white. Same times, there is slavery. Even we don't see the real slavery law, but still we have some slavery laws behind our life. So all those things happening, same thing in Moses' life, Moses' leadership during that. So that's why I'm choosing to Moses as the first generations, our ancestors, how he was handles those older, his leaderships, how we can learn from him to better leaderships we can have it. So today is, we can look at those America presidents who was like a very famous president. I want to choose several presidents, Abraham Lincoln's. So we see the Abraham Lincoln and Moses, there is a similar situation because Abraham Lincoln and Moses, the background looks same because Abraham Lincoln was fight for freedom of slave, and Moses was fight for, same slavery for the from Egypt, So that's why those those things we can see the Abraham and Moses and the Lakers, they all make people's freedoms, equal opportunity, no racism. So they fight, and as well as they had many same things. They had a same background, many same background. Those they habits like a hero. Hero show from those leadership during war, because Abraham's and Lincoln, that time is a civil war. America had divided the civil war, as well as those Abraham Lincoln's also freedom of slavery, great fighter, human equality, dignity. So those are the things is the same thing. Why God asking Moses to go to the Egypt, escape those Moses, the Israel peoples, the God's people, because God fight for those human equality and dignity, because those dignities lost through those slavery in Israel. So we find out what God focus on today and yesterday and futures. So many, many political leaders who had a not same background, like Moses was teaching law, especially Moses had a covenant, 10 covenant. So we have so famous know about Moses get those 10 covenant. He wisely legislators and judges people through those 10 commandments. He has a guide, judge inspired by God. Those law is inspired by God. Today's America, we have go back to Moses, like Moses was judge, legislation, everything inspired by God. When Moses was pray to God, asking the law to registration, God's people, God give it to them. And then as well as many political leader, we have to follow those Moses leadership, because when peoples, far from those law, pray the forgiveness of sins, Moses one job, the priority job was pray to God forgiveness. Between those, God was so angry because of those betray or apart from those God's rules. Many peoples against God's rule. The times Moses was mitigate. He was perfect to mitigate through those asking forgiveness for God's peoples, what they did. And God was asking blessing through those Moses asking reconciliations, make able to keep the daily life to, surviving those Israel every days, be more stronger until they conquer Canaan. So we need those mitigator, like between Moses and between peoples who are apart from God. Moses was bringing those God's rule and mitigates. So today's is Congress. Today's is Congress. We have those gotta give authority, legislators make law, but we should really think about. We have to have a love of people like Moses. Moses was asking forgiveness, asking mercy, asking guidance, real guidance, what achieved God's goal, what reconciliations between God and blessing the people. So we have to make those kind of, leaders that can ask kings, God, and pray, as well as, Moses was make a construction first tabernacle, which is we call like church today's. Those Moses' big job was destroy between face the peoples and God, because those construction of tabernacles means God desire to be human in the earth, fulfill his wills through the covenant. God want to stay with us. So those we have to really, today's we have thousand church, million church all over the world. We have to go back to biblical value that Moses construction tabernacle, that because of those tabernacle able to peacemake, able to communication many peoples to go in the tabernacle, talk about, he can make tabernacle all the peoples who can forgiveness through the role of the tabernacles. We are like today's Congress looks like tabernacles, be like tabernacles, the place of forgiveness, the place of make law, place of listen God's voice, place of appearance God's message, like pulpits, God's dream in the world, God's dream in this world, like Moses' pulpits. Moses was political leaders. He was leading his peoples, he leading those peoples through the God's law, through the wise legislators, through the make those tabernacles, communication with God, make those happen to forgiveness through those tabernacles. Fulfills his role as prophets. Fulfill his role as leaders, So that's why today's, we want to think about today's America. So today's America there is so many, leaders there. In Republicans, we choose the best president is Abraham Lincoln, as well as we choose another Ronald Reagan's, because they, their life, always very struggles. They becomes very undergraduations, under, not like high class, but undergraduate, those backgrounds they have, like Abraham Lincoln's does not have educated even elementary school, middle school, high school. But anyway, he studied 2 years law, became a lawyers, as well as, after that, he go to the member of Congress, and later on, he becomes, president of the United States, during those Civil War. That time is America so divided, but North and, South, North and the divided. So, that times, South and North. So that's why, but also many slavers, Black Lives Matters. Now today, same things. We have a fight for Black Lives Matters, human equality, dignities, socialisms. Same thing happened today. Even Abraham Lincoln's fight for Ronald Reagan's also fight for them. They are heroes showing leadership during those wars. Same like Moses, he was fight for the God's rules, until conquered Canaans. Freedoms. They fight for freedoms. The Reagan said that freedom takes less than a generation to die. Freedom is not automatically inherited. Freedom is something that must be depended by fight. And what is how it is passed down to the future generation. Otherwise, one day after we grow older, to our children and to their children, it will tell you that we were once free human beings. So this is we see those Donald Reagan's was wrote, about freedoms so important. Freedom is not automatically inherited. Our next generation, if we not really inherit freedoms, one day our future generation said we had once freedoms, human being. I think this is touch our heart. So we are fighting every day, because Moses fighting as leaders, the peoples apart from God, they made idols. They made their own gods. They had all the socialists, rich and poor. Today, same thing. In America, had so many problems that we have now an economic problem too. We does not have equal rich and poor. So we need some leaders make those equal opportunity, even economics. We need the united, we need a unity of this country. This country is so divided by democracy, is so divided by Republican or Democrat, or black and white and poor and richer. So we have to be unities, not divide anymore. We need looking for those leadership today. We have so struggle economic difficult. So who will be solve those problems today? President Joe Biden was selected 46th president of the United States. He was, talk about, his keyword was unities. So, and then also the Donald Trump, we see fight mega America first, We see those Obama president said that immigration boys. So we have a different president. Tomorrow is the president, days. We see that our former three president, they talk different message people give. Like Obama president said to immigration boys first, and next president Donald Trump, America first, and Biden's, those talk about unity. So today's America, those three presidents all day catch up the problems, but we have to really ourselves think about that what leaderships we really looking for today's presidents. The presidents who can close the gap between the rich or poor, that is most important. As well as the president who will united America. We have the unity. And then also the present leadership, we need to overcome economic difficulty. So we need a president who understands the importance of both, President Trump said America first, as well as Obama president said immigration first. We need to balance immigration or America, although we are American. So we have the unity together, not divided. If some leadership said to for America first, some leadership said to unity first. Some leadership said immigration first. Those 4 years, 8 years, those different policies focus on those what the key word they said. But still today's America, nothing changed. Still there is a socialism. We need to really do the social cohesion, social cohesion, not black and white. We need cohesions together. We are together. We are all under God. We are all together. Also, we have the restorations, our democracies, and we have the restoration international communities, our status, because America now turned down international influence status. So also really we have to, where is the vaccine policies? So many vaccine policies. We have to be really defeat COVID and acceptable policy, make people's comfort. So I look at all this, today's America has the same problem what the Moses had it. So tomorrow is the present days. We choose presidents today, Obama, while yesterday, Obama, another yesterday, like Clinton. Now is Biden's. They have their own core message. They have their own core values. Each president have core values. Abraham Lincoln's or Abraham, another generation to other presidents until today. They have all people, they have core values in personal leaderships. They have their personal leaderships. How they can be those personal leadership can value up to public value today's America, solve these problems, all the problems. So we really think about, first things first. So we have to really, this democracy needed to unite it. So we have to pray together. I think the Reagan's most is achievable. Those problems we have. First, the Reagan's achievement, most values American politics, establish Republican identity, today's conservatives. So why we have conservative, those conservative needed to really revive as like a Reagan's, those Republican identity. Today's we have to rebuild those as presence, known as Reagan's. So that time is Ronald Reagan's, there is that time so many divided Republican Party, even divided many dozen of factions, former Republican, but Reagan united those parties by consistently advocating the conservative principles. So we have to have conservative principles like what President Reagan said, by politic authorizations. By Reagan's, he strongly advocate conservative principle. That's why we are today fighting in the same what the Donald Reagan's did. Donald Reagan's advocate. So that's why there is many others people's abortions, gun, and climate change. Why we fight those everything? We needed to look at the conservative principle value what the Reagan's built. Today's America too far away from conservative principles. I think those conservative principles very closest biblical principle. That's why I choose Republican parties. I choose be even candidate, fight for those conservative principles. So we are all the independent decisions over interventions, we need to really think about minimize the role of federal government too. So we have to be united. Who's gonna be real present, be united today? Unities is very important. Conservative principle is very important. So today's Christians, we have responsibility. Why those Moses fight in front of God? He make laws, right law to follow. Moses asking God to give me the law to, legislations. Take care of your peoples. Today is our Congress. We need to pray to go back to conservative principles. We need to be like Moses, pray to God, asking God, what is really in America needed today's? God tell us today's what we should do. Let's pray.